Okay. So we know that there are 3 different essays. Gabe, will you grab that paper where it says U.S. Gov and Civics? So we know there are 3 different essay options. LEQ, SAQ, DBQ. I have all 3 set up. These are all prior essay questions and documents from previous AP exams. I'm going to give you the choice of what you want to work on. And we'll go in order because we only have about 30 minutes left. So we can either do SAQ practice, LEQ setup. So what we would do is we would set up an LEQ chart and do the brainstorming and remind ourselves how to do it. Or a DBQ HIP analysis. So I want you to think, which one for a second do you feel like you need the most work on? SAQ, LEQ, or DBQs? Turn around. Grab that where it says U.S. Gov and Civics. Left, left, left. There you go. Oh, okay, never mind. All right, so we're going to vote. Who wants to work on SAQs, LEQs, DBQs? All right, we'll start with the LEQ first, just for the ease of it. So again, you need out a piece of paper to be able to write on. So you need out a piece of paper. Piece of paper. Also, if you have any notes for this time period, periods 1 to 3, you can grab those out as well. Or if you just want to go raw and say, how am I going to do it? You can go ahead and do it. Hey, are you joining us for writing practice? Will you, where it says U.S. Gov and Civics, grab that piece of paper? Left, left. There it is. All right. So, LEQs. Okay, listen. So when you guys do an LEQ, remember all together, you have approximately 50 minutes to complete the DBQ, and anywhere between 30 and 40 minutes to complete an LEQ. That gives you about 5 minutes to do what we call a pre-write. Now, I don't know a lot of Ms. Pickett's class in terms of how she teaches you how to do pre-writes. But for my class, typically what you do is, the first thing that you're going to do is you are going to analyze your essay prompt. Now, on your, so guys, as you came in, where it says U.S. Gov and Civics, there's a paper with the essays on it. Yep. So right now on your essay practice paper, I want you to look at the LEQ, and I want you to analyze it. So, step number 1 that you need to do is you need to bracket the time period. So on the paper, go ahead and bracket the time period. Next, circle the topic that you are going to be talking about in this essay. Circle the topic that you're going to be talking about in this essay. Then, I always like to underline or highlight where it says the extent, because remember when you do your writing, you need to say to a great extent, to a little extent, whatever it could be. And then with your group, I want you to decide what type of essay is this, and then write it down next to your essay prompt. So if you need to ask your group, confirm with your group, and then write down what type of essay is this. And write it down. All right. Okay. Next step. And again, this is where, if you're in Ms. Pickett's class, we may disagree. I don't know how she does this or whatever. But in my class, what you're taught, hey, will you grab that paper where it says U.S. Gov and Civics? So how I say it is, to be able to brainstorm, is we set up a T-chart. Now, one of your points on the LEQ is what is called the complexity point. That is the second analysis point. I don't know how Ms. Pickett has taught you how to be able to get that point, but the easiest way to do it is to do both sides of the argument. So in this case scenario, let's say a causation essay. You talk about causes and consequences. In a comparison, compare and contrast, similarities and differences. So what should be on the left side of our T-chart in a CCOT essay? Change. And on the other side? Continuity. If you talk about both sides of the argument, you then get your complexity point. Hey guys, as you come in, where it says U.S. Gov and Civics, please grab that paper. All right, now, The next thing that I always set up with my T-chart is I do PSE. Political, social, economic. Political, social, economic. Now, this is just a brainstorming. This is not to say do one paragraph political, one paragraph social. You can do that if you want. This is just a brainstorming. Now, best case scenario, you should have at least 3 items on each side. Doesn't matter where they go. If they're all economic, if they're all social, whatever. So, with your group, on your paper, I want you to create a T-chart, 3 items on each side. You can brainstorm as a group to answer this question. Evaluate the extent to which slavery from 1607 to 1776 contributed to maintaining continuity as well as fostering change in the United States. I want you to think of this not just in terms of slavery, because we know that there's other types than just African American slavery, right? Your goal is to pick 3 terms, not just broad terms like there were laborers. Laborers is not a term. Think vocab terms. So with your group, I'm going to give you, it should only take you about 4 minutes. Create a T-chart with the most terms possible having to do with this essay. Ready? Go.
You guys can it's about slavery.
South is still or social economy based on African.
Slaves actually had more rights than they did when they were slaves. Yeah, the black people had more rights. Yeah, because remember the rebellion?
Yeah, I'll be right there. I'm just running the I'll be right over. Well, there's sheets, right?
And they were separated
And the
from families.
donut. I'll be right there. I just am running a review session. I just need to start a group next thing and then I'll run over. Can you bring me a donut? Okay, cool. Thank you. Bye. 2-minute warning.
So lost rights, political, social, economic.
Oh, politically, what's the term where like?
It doesn't really matter. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, they didn't have how to.
Rebellion,
So Bacon's Rebellion was basically so Nathaniel Bacon was not happy with the governorship of the state that he was living in, and so he rebelled against the local governorship. And so the consequences are, 1, they got stricter on the colonists, but 2, it's kind of confusing. So they got stricter on the colonists as in they were more aware of what was going on. But the second one is that they also said that now the colonists should have a little bit more say in the government. But obviously that gets revoked once we start taxing after the 7 Years' War.
Didn't it also have to do with slaves too?
Yeah. Let's start it. SOMER.
What do you guys have for the political one?
I have Somerset Decision.
Let me double check.
It ended slavery.
Yeah, pretty good. Yeah.
There are a lot of black.
Zach? No. He was upset about Native Americans attacking the colonists.
I was confused.
Yeah. Stono Rebellion is what you're referring to. That was when they were all fleeing to Florida. Remember? All right, listen. Okay. All right. We're going to create a massive brainstorming list up here. So we're going to start over with the changes. What do you mean? Positive thinking. All right. So we're going to start with changes of slavery during this time. Political. Anybody have anything for political? Shout it out. Okay, what? Somerset Decision. Good. Now remember, some of you are probably like, I have no idea what that is. So remember, the Somerset Decision was right at the Revolutionary War time. The Somerset Decision banned slavery use in England and also said that if Britain were to win the war, they would free the slaves in the Americas, which basically made the goal was to make slaves side with Britain's army. However, a lot of slaves also thought that that wouldn't actually happen in real life. But that's what the Somerset Decision is. That's a very good one. Okay, good. What else? Any more political? Yeah? No? All right. How about social?
Slavery.
Say that again. Okay, so the transition from indentured servitude to slavery, but it's only in one area of America. Where is it? The South. Remember, indentured servitude is still going on in the North. Could that be a continuity? Yeah. So I would actually put it more as an economic, but indentured servitude in the North. Remember, slavery, servitude, those can both be used. They're interchangeable. Slavery has many meanings. So indentured servitude in the North. Also, you can use indentured servitude as a way of getting to America. So that's a way of a payment. Okay, what else? Economic? Yeah? Okay, good. So we have a cash crop economy going on in the South. Also, with the cash crop economy, a continuity. What are the two types of plants that they continue to grow throughout that time period? Tobacco and indigo. Yep. So you also have tobacco and indigo over here. Can we what? Well, we're kind of flipping back and forth here. Anything else on a change? Any more changes? Okay. Continuities. Examples of continuities. Just shout them out.
Middle passage.
Middle passage. Good.
Racism.
Which... Now, hold on a second. We'll get to the racism part. Okay, middle passage, okay, is a continuity. Also, where are slaves tending to come from during this time? Africa, West Africa specifically. And you could also, if you really wanted to, you could also say that the majority of our slaves were actually not going to America, they were going to the Caribbean. Now, Bethany, do you remember when we wrote our very first essay in my class and everyone put racism, but then they never explained it well? So if you can explain it well, then that's fine. The only thing I would caution, though, is if you remember, this is the time period actually where slavery is not as bad. Remember, slavery gets the worst, the treatment is the worst after the invention of cotton gin. Okay, how are you going to describe it very well?
That, like, we thought that, like, black people weren't actually people, so they were possessions.
Okay. I would just be very cautious because you'd have to explain it well. I do think one continuity, though, does have to do with the fact that slaves were treated better during this time. So if you remember, we talked about in my class how up in the north they were able to get jobs in businesses, especially with fishing and lumber. They also were able to have, they did not have segregated churches in the north. Gabe. Okay, yeah, so you have agriculture, so, yeah, I put it down here. So we still have an agriculture or cultural, otherwise known as an agrarian society in the South. Yeah.
Were slaves allowed to get married at this point?
So that actually has not happened yet. Slaves communities begin in the 1800s with the cotton gin.
Okay, so I know this is a change, and I just thought of it now. So with the rebellions,
Yes.
They had to start enforcing rules more,
Mhm.
and they started ruling these. So the relationship between slaves and the whites became worse because of these rebellions.
Yes. Now, there's the biggest thing that you have to be careful about is your time period. There's only one major rebellion that happens during this time period, which is Stono. Bacon does not have to do with slavery. So the Stono Rebellion is the term that you would use for this. Stono Rebellion, remember, was when the slaves fled to Florida because in Spain they didn't have slavery, and then they got stopped 10 miles from the border and they were all killed. So you could say this with the fugitive laws, and they were more strict on people escaping, because before you could leave the plantation, go for a vacation, and come back, and now they're going to be a little bit stricter. Yes. Okay, any more? One thing about a continuity as well, in terms of the types of slaves, most of the slaves during this time that were coming over were male. We don't get the females until after the invention of the cotton gin. Also, do you guys remember when we talked about the death rates? How the average slave only lived 3 years in the South? That's another example, too, is you have a high mortality rate, which means a high death rate. And most of that is due to disease. And what's the major disease happening in the South during this time? Malaria. Easiest, smallpox is just as a general whole, but that's mostly affecting the Native Americans. The one thing I would say of why it's malaria, think about mosquitoes. Mosquitoes are in the South. Yeah. Hold on, guys. Go. Zoe, can you shut that door?
So the point that we were making is that slaves are treated better as a continuity. How would you say that?
So you would talk about slaves. So where did I put that? So you would put this in the North. So you would be talking about how in the North they were able to have fishing corporations, or they were part of the whaling expeditions. This is in the North. So in the North they were treated better, and they were also able to go to church together as well. So there were non-segregated churches. So that's what you would describe, is you would describe the conditions in the North. Okay? All right, now, your next step. In theory, this takes 5 minutes. Okay? We took about 5 minutes. If you had gotten everything I did, maybe take a 6 minute, but in general, you did pretty good. So now what we're going to do is we're going to create our thesis statement. Now, remember, for your thesis statement, I tend to say you need to pick your 3 best on each side. So if I want to talk about the transition to cash crop economy, indentured servitude towards slavery, and enforcing slave laws, those are the 3 I would use here. These are A, B, and C. Then on my continuities, if I tried to do, this is going to be my X, the middle passage, we'll say Y for my cash crops, and then we'll say Z, we'll just do high mortality rates. Okay? So, A, B, C, X, Y, Z. This is how you make sure you get both sides of the argument. If you only talk about one side in your thesis, you don't get your analysis point unless Ms. Pickett has taught you another way. There's more complicated ways, but this is the easiest way. Some people use synthesis as well. Okay, so remember for your thesis statement, I wish I had space here. Okay, so remember for your thesis statement, you want to talk about both sides of the argument. I always like to say although. So I could say, although there were many continuities during although there were many continuities with slavery in the time period of, I think I put 1700 to 1783, such as the Middle Passage continued to be used, there were high mortality rates for slaves, and tobacco or cash crops were still the economy. There were also many changes such as A, B, and C. Now I flipped those. You can use them interchangeably, doesn't matter. So with your group, what I want you to do is I want you to make me the best thesis statement you can. Then, in Pear Deck, I'm going to go ahead and put it up that you're going to type up your thesis statement, and we're going to say who has the best thesis statement.
Oh, I will do it. You don't get it. You got it.
Yeah.
No, I'm just playing the grand.
do this, you want to make sure that you have like the questions.
Yeah. So that's just using the language of the question. Okay. So it depends on how you do it. So this would be, so you could say like, although slavery maintained continuity between the time period of 1607 to 1776 by A, B, and C, it also fostered change in labor systems with X, Y, and Z. So it's whatever works best for you. Okay. So you can use the language of the question. You don't have to use the language of the question. That's up to you. As long as you talk about changes, and continuities about slavery during this time period. Okay. However you want to do it. That's just called using the language of the question. Okay. So it's up to you. That looks like fun A-push.
Oh yeah, look at that. So much fun A-push. Look at my graph, Miss Ray. I'm so proud of my graph.
Great.
It's fun A-push. Oh, can I grab this early to study early? Is that okay?
Once you've written it, please type it into your computer so that we can put it up on the board. Best thesis statement.
Okay, so what are
1 minute to be able to type in your thesis. $30 seconds. Please type it in. That's a good idea. Do the bare minimum. That's the way to get a 5. I'm about to put it up. We're almost out of time, so we gotta hurry.
middle passage? No political power. No political power. Write it. Just no political power. Such as and then it
All right. So, listen. So let's read some of these theses, whatever the plural is. Okay. So let's see what some of these say, and let's kind of decide whether or not they would get a thesis point. So, although there were many changes in slave labor systems from 1607 to 1776, such as the change from indentured servitude to slavery in the South, enforcement of fugitive law, that is wonky English, enforcement of fugitive law, and the change to crash crops in the South, there were also many continuities such as high mortality rates, the better treatment of slaves in the North, and the usage of the Middle Passage. Good. Only thing I would be careful of is your grammar. There's no capital letters here. Okay? All right, next one. Although many changes occurred during this period, such as the flourishing This flourishing is what we like to call word fluff. Okay? Be careful of that. Of a cash crop, heavy economy, that's another word fluff. The signing of the Somerset Decision, which that doesn't make sense. You don't need to put signing of the Somerset Decision. You just have to say the Somerset Decision.
So we had to because we said flourishing.
Okay. Yeah, okay, guys, we don't need to tag every time. So, just be careful of word fluff. You are not writing that as the slaves went across the waves of the sea and saw the big, blue, beautiful ocean. Don't be that person. Okay? Now, these are good. So, these are good examples of the one. I think the top one's a little bit stronger than the bottom one, but both would probably get the point. Now, okay, listen. I literally have like 2 minutes, so I gotta hurry. So, once you have your thesis, then you begin to write your essay. Now, remember that the best way to organize your essay is just like this. First paragraph, historical context, get it over with. If not, you're going to forget it. Okay? Remember, there's 2 types of historical context. Number 1, something that happened before to cause the now. Easy. European exploration. Spaniards coming over to South America. Something along those lines. Or number 2, something happening at the same time period. French and Indian War. You could use that for historical context. Thesis, boom, you're done. Hey, you got at least 1 point. Then you go into your paragraphs. I like to say 1, 2, 3, 4. 1 paragraph is historical context and thesis. Change A, B, and C. Continuities X, Y, and Z. And restate your thesis to make sure you get the point. Remember, for every term, you must define it and explain why it connects to the topic. So, one example of a continuity was the middle passage. The middle passage was defined. This was an example of a continuity because blank. Now, here's my offer to you. You, because you came to the session today, have this chance. You have all the essays that I have given you. If you are interested, you may write any of these essays, anywhere from SAQ down to DBQ. You can even just write 1 single hit. I don't care. If you want to bring it to me after the end of the weekend, on Monday morning, I will grade them and tell you, if I were a reader, what your grade would be. So if you are interested, you could do all of them. You could do one of them. You could just say, hey, here's a hit. Does it work? Does it get the point? You have the chance to do that because you came today. Okay? So these are all, by the way, previous examples from AP exams. This is what you would see on the AP exam. Did this help today? Because I haven't done an essay one before. Okay, good. All right. Tuesday, finishing Market Revolution and doing Civil War. And then on Thursday, writing session. Remember, May the 5th, full-length projects exam. Monday, May 7th, mega review session. Have a great day. Thanks for coming. Yep. If you're in my class right now, can you help me put computers away and reset my classroom?